YouTubers, it's your boy Matt, and today is our first in our Card of the Week series. Really wanted to start with something new, something fresh, something that people may not be playing in their cubes. So I wanted to start off by taking a look at Gutterbones. Gutterbones is 1 black for a creature skeleton warrior 2/1 with the ability Gutterbones enters the battlefield tapped. And for 1 and a black, we can return Gutterbones from our graveyard to our hands, activate this ability only during your turn and only if an opponent lost life this turn. And the question I really wanted to discuss today is Gutterbones cubable? Well, in order to find out, all we need to do is compare him to other black 1-drops popular in cubes. So let's take a look at those. Well, according to Cube Tutor, the most popular black 1-drops include Bloodsoaked Champion, Diagraph Ghoul, Karna, Dread Wanderer, Gravecrawler, and Crypt Breaker. But we can't compare Gutterbones to all of them all at the same time. We really need to try and break them down into what they have in common and what different effects and things that they can bring to our cubes. So let's do that. Well, Bloodsoaked Champion is probably the best black 1-drop in cube, and he and Gutterbones have the same casting cost and the same body. Gutterbones enter the battlefield tap, but Bloodsoaked Champion can't block. So the real difference here is in their second abilities. And the fact of the matter is that Bloodsoaked Champion is just going to be a little bit easier to get out of our graveyard because he returns on attack and not necessarily on our opponent's losing life. So Bloodsoaked Champion is still probably the better 1-drop here. I've put these next 3 together because they have a whole lot in common, and I want to start off talking about Karna and Diagraph Ghoul. Now, while these guys have the same casting cost and a slightly bigger body, and there's an upside of them not coming into the battlefield tapped, they don't have haste, so even if you play them on turn 1, you're still not swinging in with them until turn 2. Now the downside on these 2 cards is that, again, they don't enter the battlefield tapped, but there's no way to recur them and get added value out of them. They're just bodies. Now let's take a minute and look at Gravecrawler. Gravecrawler, same casting cost, same body, and he can't block, just like the Bloodsoaked Champion. And Gravecrawler does have recursive value, because you can cast him from your graveyard when you have other zombies. And this seems like a really good upside, and it is if there's zombie devotion in the black section of your cube. Me, I don't really like Gravecrawler. I think he puts too many restrictions on what other black creatures I can play in my different black slots. I kind of like being able to play whatever black creatures I want and not having to worry about whether or not I'm supporting different creature types. And so for me, Gutterbones is a little better fit. Let's look at one last black monster who has a whole lot in common with Gutterbones. Now, Dread Wanderer is basically a copy of Gutterbones. Same casting cost, same body, enters the battlefield tapped, has an add-on ability that brings him out of the yard. But let's take a minute and look at that ability. 2 and a black, return Dread Wanderer from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this only when you can cast a sorcery and only when you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. Now, the ability to recur Dread Wanderer is fantastic late game. But if you're truly playing black aggro and you trade with Gutterbones on turn 2, when you hit your opponent on turn 3, you can recast Gutterbones for free, right out of the graveyard. But Dread Wanderer is probably still stuck there because you've got cards in your hand. And I don't like having to have my hand empty to get my best creature out of the yard and hope and pray I can finish off my opponent. So here, again, while I think Dread Wanderer is a really solid black 1-drop, I think Gutterbones is just a little bit better. Now let's take a minute and see what other uses we can get out of Gutterbones in our cube. But Gutterbones might be just a good card to discard for value. Take a look at the Heir of Falkenrath. You can discard Gutterbones to transform the Heir of Falkenrath on turn 3. Swing in with your 3/2 flyer, hit your opponent, activate Gutterbones, return it to your hand, and then because it's turn 3, pay 1 more, and then drop it right back onto the battlefield. Now you've got 5 power on the field and a 3/2 flyer. Not bad for a black aggro deck. And if you want to talk about value, let's look at Packrat. Packrat lets you discard a card to make a copy of Packrat. Now, this card is a cube staple and it can just take over games. But the good news is with Packrat, every time you hit your opponent, you could trigger Gutterbones, return it to your hand, and then discard it to make another copy of Packrat again. going over and over, Gutterbones is a constant discard outlet for Pack Rat. And if your opponent can't do something pretty quickly, the game is going to end. But sometimes when you're trying to figure out the best way to use a card, you need to look at how it's used in other formats. Let's take Judith the Scourge Diva, who by the way might be one of the best Rakdos cube cards ever printed, but that's another video. In Standard, when Judith comes down, Gutterbones becomes a 3/1. And when he dies, Judith can help him trade with a 4/4, because Judy will deal that last point of damage for him. But maybe even a better trick is that you attack in with Gutterbones, trade, Judy deals the extra point of damage to the opposing player, triggering Gutterbones' recursion ability, and then you pay 2, pull him out of the graveyard, and drop him right back on the battlefield, right where he was, and then do the same thing again the following turn. So let's go back to our original question. Is Gutterbones cubable? Well, if you support black aggro, I think the answer is definitely yes. He's one of the best black 1-drops available to us. Well, does cube size matters? Actually, I think if you are supporting black aggro, Gutterbones makes the cut even at 360 cards. Like I said, he's just one of the best cards we could be running. Now, if you think I'm wrong, feel free to explain in the comments below. Or, if there's a card you want me to do a video on, feel free to leave the suggestion and we'll take a look at it. And until then, keep cubing, my friends. Thanks for watching the video and be sure to like and subscribe below.